Hey Bookish Babes, and welcome to my book nook. For those that are new around here, the name's Rainy. I teach elementary music and I also love reading books. Normally thriller and horror, but I've gotten a lot more into like romance and fantasy and sci-fi and all these other types of genres. So if you're interested in that, please like and subscribe to my channel down below. It really helps my channel grow. Today is normally the day where I would do my TBR challenge, my friends themed TBR game where I, roll some prompts and I see what I get and I see what type of categories I can get with this board that I made designed around this friends trivia game. However, I'm doing too many Readathons this month to have it be something. So it's really the one with the Readathons. And so we are going to talk about 4 Readathons that I am actively participating in. One that I actively forgot about, along with other books on top of it that I'm reading for like book clubs and all these other things. And hopefully I can make all of these books fit into one of the Readathons so that it actually all counts. But I'm going to tell you about the 4 Readathons that I'm doing. I will post information and links to all of them down below, like who started each one, so that you can join them if you want to, because it's not too late since it is only April 1st. And then we will go from there. And I will start by prefacing that if you watched my March TBR, I read one of the 6 books I was supposed to read. March was a dumpster fire. You will find out about it in my March wrap-up. But basically, it went off the tracks. I got in a slump. A lot of stuff happened. I DNF'd my besties book club. A lot of crazy stuff happened. And it didn't go the way that I expected it did. But I still had to find time. I read less books than I have usually. But April, I've got to get my nose to the grind because this baby is coming soon. And I have a lot of books I got to read before she gets here. You know? Okay, let's get started by talking about the different readathons that I am doing for this month. Okay, so the first readathon that I am participating in that I am very excited to participate in that I didn't do last year, but I'm glad I'm doing this year, is Realmathon, which is hosted by Covers with Cassidy. So I'm going to link to her channel down below to the initial Realmathon video so that you can catch up, join a team, and all of that. There are 4 different teams. I don't remember the names of all the teams, but there's a fantasy team, a romance team, a thriller horror team, and I believe like a sci-fi nonfiction team. I'm on Team Cyrus, which is Team Romance. I actually chose romance because there are a lot of romance that I've been wanting to get to lately. I'm kind of in like my romance era, trying to like venture into dark romance and other types of romance, so that's where I'm headed. But basically, the way that this readathon works is like each of the books that you read can be worth up to 5 prompts, and it can either be positive points that like give you points towards your team, or negative points that like defend and take down points of another team. And it just depends on like which prompts fit with which book. Not all prompts fit 5 books. You also get like extra points for like doing an indie published author, for page count if it's a longer, chunkier book, if it's a hybrid between like yours and another team's. So like I'm reading a fantasy romance, so I would get 10 points for that because my category is romance, but it's also fantasy. So things like that. Anyway, not all of the books on here are romance, at least 2 of them are not, but they fit the prompts, and that's why they are on here, because I needed to read them anyway, and we have too many books for me to try to make them all fit in other ways. And then the hosts for the Cyrus romance group are Steph from Steph Loves and Rye from Reading with Rye. I will link to all of their stuff. Okay, so the first book I'm reading is Sorrowland by River Solomon. No, this is not a romance. This is one that I was talking about. I am reading this for the Buzzword Challenge for Books and Lala because it was an emotion. Sorrow is an emotion. And I don't know much about this one, but apparently it's like about this book takes Vern and her babies away from civilization and then back to it, but they return changed and they change everyone else. I know it has to do with, I think it has to do not with slavery, stuff about like life in the margins. So like here it says, it's a genre-bending work of gothic fiction. Monsters aren't just individuals, but entire nations. This is a searing, seminal book that marks the arrival of a bold, unignorable voice in American fiction. I don't want to read the whole thing because it's a lot. But I've honestly heard fantastic stuff about this book. And so I'm very excited to finally be getting to it because it looks really good. The other book that I guess you could put it might have romance in it, but it's more fantasy, and I'm reading it for Besties Book Club. It fit the prompts. Is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. We are continuing in our Throne of Glass read-along. It is bi-monthly because every other month we're reading one of these books, and then we're reading a different book. March's choice did not go well. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. It failed. But I'm excited to get to this because I gave the Assassin's Blade 4.5 stars. And I've heard this one is better. So I'm not going to say much about this, but it is about a girl named Selena Sardothian. And basically, In a world without magic, she's summoned to the castle. She comes not to kill the king, who rules from his throne of glass, but to win her freedom. If she defeats 23 killers, thieves, and warriors, she'll be released from prison to serve as the king's champion. But then a lot of other stuff comes into the path. And as we get further and further into this series, I'm not really going to explain the books because I don't want to ruin them for you. But I'm very, very, very excited to get to this. And this one is not that long. They get longer as they go, of course. Then let's actually dive into like the romance portion of my Realmathon reads. And the book that I'm going to hold up to you, I'm already 25% in because kickoff sprints were last night and I am obsessed with this book. And that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. You've probably seen this book around everywhere. If you haven't, have you been living under a rock? I don't know. But I am loving this book. It is a vampire fantasy romance about this girl named Araya, and she is a human, and she was found like in this battle by this very like powerful like ruler vampire. And instead of killing her, he basically took her in as his daughter. And she's lived with vampires her whole life, which is not safe because she's a human. And basically, in order to not have to live in fear of her life forever, she decides to enter this competition called the Kajari, which is basically like, it consists of 4 different trials. And if she makes it to the end, she gets one wish from like the goddess Nyaxia, who can grant anything. And she has this plan for what she's going to do in order to be safe for the rest of her life. But of course, then she has to ally with this other type of vampire because there's 3 different types of vampires that she's never been with before. And a little romance might ensue from there. And his name is Rain. Rain. Fabulous. Anyway, like I said, this book is fantastic. Fan-freaking-tastic. It's probably going to be 5 stars. I am so excited that I am getting to it. And the sequel comes out April 11th. And I am buddy reading this next one with my friend Neva because I got her to read the first book and now she is currently rereading it, and it really did what it needed to do for us both. And we are reading Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. This is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe, only it follows different characters. Like, these characters were introduced in Magnolia Parks, but they were not main characters. So this follows Daisy, Christian, and Julian, I believe. And I don't know much about this one because there's not even a synopsis for this. But I just love the cover. Like, it really is everything for me. And I'm excited to annotate the crap out of this one and to be sad and to just commiserate with Neva in our sadness for this book because I just can't wait. Then we have a book that I've literally put on my TBR like 5 times, but this is going to be the last time that happens. I'm going to read it this time, and that is Gothicana by Rue Nix. I mean, I even have my entire shelf dedicated with the like special edition book. So I'm going to read it. This one is like a dark academia-esque type dark romance, an unusual girl, an enigmatic man, an ancient castle. What could go wrong, you know, with Corvina and Vad Deverell. And I'm really excited to read this edition because she has a bunch of extra chapters and like scenes and all this other stuff and pictures and all the stuff. I mean, can you not? Like, they're just like, it's just beautiful. Anyway, I'm very, very excited for this. I think it's going to be fabulous. And that's all I'm going to say on this book. And then the last one that I have on this list, I'm also buddy reading with my friend Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading because I chose 5 books for her to read off of her Goodreads, and 4 of them I had read and 1 I hadn't. And she was like, oh, well, let's read the one that you hadn't, and actually fit perfectly for all the prompts in Realmathon. And that is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I've been wanting to read this for a very long time. I actually own the second book as well, so hopefully I'm loving this and I can just go right into the sequel. But this one says, Calla Fletcher wasn't 2 when her mother took her and fled Alaska, unable to handle the isolation of the extreme rural lifestyle, leaving behind her father in the process. Calla never looked back, and at 26, a busy life in Toronto is all she knows. When she learns that her dad's days may be numbered, she knows it's time to make the long trip back to the remote frontier town of her birth to attempt to fix their estranged relationship. And then basically, while she tries to connect with him, Jonah, this Alaskan pilot who keeps her father's charter plane company operational, can't imagine calling anywhere else home, and he's waiting to fly the city girl back to where she belongs, convinced she's too pampered to handle the wild. And then I assume they get into some sort of like romance or relationship. Anyway, very excited for this. I think it'll be great, and I'm glad that I have a friend to buddy read it with. So those are the 6 books that I'm definitely reading for Realmathon. I'm sure other books could fit into that, but that's all that I'm like putting myself to. So now let's talk about Star's Hollowathon, which is hosted by my lovely friend Neva from Reading with Neva, and there's a couple other co-hosts, and I am an honorary co-host because we didn't know when this baby, it was coming. So the Stars Hollowathon one actually is really fun because how she's doing it is she has her Gilmore Girls board, and basically every 2 to 3 times a week, she will roll a dice and move it on the board and drop that as a video on YouTube, and we have to do whatever that prompt is. You're not actually finding out what prompts you're needing to read until actually that day. And so the first prompt dropped last night, and I was not very excited about it because it was a reread. And I was like, ooh, I don't have time to reread any books this month. But you know what? I do have time to reread Heartstopper Volume 1 because it is a graphic novel, and I can very easily do that. So I found a way around doing that. So this is the first prompt I'm reading for Stars Hollowathon. So you're not really going to get to see my Stars Hollowathon TBR because it's being made up the whole entire month. So I'll just share about it in my April wrap-up. But if you don't know what Heartstopper is about by now, it's about Charlie Spring. He sits next to rugby player Nick Nelson in class one morning. A friendship follows, and that develops into something more for Charlie, who doesn't think he has a chance. But Nick is struggling with feelings of his own, and as they grow closer and take on the ups and downs of high school, they come to understand the surprising and delightful ways in which love works. Cutest little couple ever. Cutest little Netflix series ever. Just watch it. Just watch it and read it. So that's what I'm doing for Stars Hollowathon. Next, let's talk about the old school readathon that I am doing. This is a 90s based readathon. I do not remember who is the original host of this. I just know that I'm on Team Purple Parrots, which is hosted by like Amy from Amy Noel and a couple others. Like I said, I have not looked too much into this beyond what I need to read and what team I am on. But it looks so awesome. I love the 90s. There's like 90s show prompts you can do, 90s Instagram prompts, 90s book prompts, like there are movie prompts. There are so many things going on with this readathon. I am trying to focus only on the book aspect. And so I chose books for all of these prompts. I made sure that if they could match more than one prompt that they did, because you know my homegirl's reading list is getting a little chunky. And that's where we're at. But I'll leave all the information for this readathon underneath this video. But now let's talk about what the prompts are and what I am reading for this readathon. So the first book that I'm reading for this readathon is episode 13 by Craig DeLuey, and this is the prompt, a book that basically fits the vibe of an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And there's an episode called The Tale of the 13th Floor, hence 13, so that fit. And so episode 13, I'm not going to lie, I've not heard great things about it. I've heard the audiobook is spectacular, which of course I don't have access to the audiobook because I'm on like a 13-week hold. I might have to like buy it from Audible, but I've heard that the book itself is not that great. But that it basically is about a new ghost hunting reality TV show, and it's about the crew of ghost hunting experts, and it's told through like interviews and diary entries and journals and like videos and things. So I can see why obviously having the audiobook would be kind of good for this. But I'm still excited to get to this. I am interested in seeing how it goes, and we're just going to give it a try. The next book I'm reading for this readathon, I made fit 2 different prompts, and I am reading My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and I'm reading this for a horror book that is set in the 80s, because I believe it takes place in 1988, and also a book that has older technology on the cover, and it looks like a vintage cassette tape, so it works for both of those. I'm not going to lie, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I don't have a good track record with Grady Hendrix. I was supposed to read his new book, How to Sell a Haunted House, in March, and I didn't, but don't worry. I plan on getting to that probably this month. But I've heard really good stuff about this one, and I do want to watch the TV adaptation because I never did. But this one is about high school sophomores Abby and Gretchen. They've been best friends since 4th grade, but after an evening of skinny dipping goes disastrously wrong, Gretchen begins to act different. She's moody, she's irritable, and bizarre incidents keep happening whenever she's nearby. Abby's investigation leads her to some startling discoveries, and by the time their story reaches its terrifying conclusion, the fate of Abby and Gretchen will be determined by a single question. Is their friendship powerful enough to beat the devil? And so yeah, it's not that long. I think I can do it. I feel like this is one of the authors that I'm going to end up reading all of his stuff, even though I know he's not for me. And you know what? Everyone has that author, and this might just be that one for me. Next one that I have on this list, I made fit for 2 books. And I'm finishing Jurassic Park, and I also put Lost World on this list. Jurassic Park and Lost World because they are animal attack books because dinosaurs attack people in it, and they are books published or set in 2003 or earlier because they were written in the 90s. So that fits for both. I don't think I have to explain what Jurassic Park is about because if I do, I really wonder where you've been your whole life. It's, you know, Dinosaur Island. People go there. They find dinosaurs, they get eaten by dinosaurs. They have to stop the dinosaurs. It's a whole thing. Anyway, I am reading this right now for a vlog, and I am about 25% in, and I'm really loving it, and I'm really loving, like, noticing the differences between the movie and the book, but I didn't finish it. So that is my goal for this month, and to read it for the 90s readathon as well. This next one was actually really fun for me to do because I remember reading Fear Street novels, but not that often because I was a little scaredy cat. Also, I bought this on Pango Books for $3 and I got like the original. I don't even care that it's all like beat up and like stuff because it's an original like first edition. The prompts are read a Fear Street book, and so I like researched which books are good, and this one came up a couple of times. And also read a horror book that was published in the 90s, and I believe this was published in like 99 or something like that. And so this is by R.L. Stine, Fear Street, the wrong number. And this one says, it begins as an innocent prank when Dina Martinson and her best friend Jade Smith make sexy phone calls to the boys from school. But Dina's half-brother Chuck catches them in the act and threatens to tell their parents unless the girls let him in on the fun. Chuck begins making random calls threatening anyone who answers. It's dangerous and exciting. They're even enjoying the publicity and the uproar they've caused until Chuck calls a number on Fear Street. To his horror, Chuck realizes he is called the wrong number. The jokes are over when murder is on the line. The murderer knows who they are and where they live, and they have nowhere else to call for help. So I'm very excited for this. I'm excited to read a Fear Street one. And I kind of got the idea that I wanted to like read or collect all of these, like the vintage editions. And I just might because it's kind of cool and I really like it. So I'm reading that for this as well. This is very 90s-esque. And then also for that readathon, I am reading Serpent in the Wings of Night, which you already saw because they had a prompt on reading a book with magical elements and a female protagonist as well. And the main character, Aurea, female protagonist, and it has magic and vampires and all this other stuff. So that fit into this prompt as well. And then the last book I'm reading that I don't currently have but is on hold at the library is Rosemary's Baby because I wanted to read a Host favorite. And that is the only book that really stuck out to me that I've always wanted to read because I've watched the movie. I think the movie is incredibly creepy, but I've always wanted to read the book as well. And if you don't know that one, that basically is about a girl that gets impregnated by the devil, I'm pretty sure, and ends up having the devil's baby. And nobody believes her, and it's very, very crazy. So I definitely want to read that as well. And then I have one more readathon that I am participating in, and you're not going to get the full gist of what I'm reading because I don't know what I'm reading yet. But this is called the Fates and Favorites Readathon, and it's actually a Patreon-hosted readathon by Miss Riley Marie. And I'm not going to lie, I totally forgot I signed up for it until I got my email today with my prompts. Anyway, so what they did is they took 3 categories, thriller and horror, fantasy, and romance. And you clicked on a Google survey, you wrote your top 10 books for that category that you chose, because that's the category you like to read from, and you submitted it. And then today on April 1st, they sent out partners. And so I got somebody's prompts or answers, and then somebody else got my answers. And the goal is, it starts on April 15th. The goal is to just read a couple of their books, see if their tastes align with you, and find some new books to read. However, I should have done the romance track because I'm trying to read a lot of romance this month, and I didn't. And so I added a bunch of thriller and horror books that I honestly don't have time for. But I do plan on reading at least 2 of them. I'm going to tell you all the books that we have options for, and if I own them, I'll show it. If I don't own it, I'll just say it. But I'm not going to explain what they're about. I'm not going to commit to any of them. Just know, well, there's one that I'm going to commit to because it was her #1 book, and so I figure I'll read her #1 book. Probably the #1 and 2 books. But other than that, I don't know. So the #1 book that I know that I am going to get to, that I know nothing about except that I know that it has killer mermaids, and then I'm pretty sure it's written by Shauna Maguire, but it's known as Mira Grant, is Into the Drowning Deep. That was their favorite book, Erin's favorite book, according to my prompts. And so I probably will read that. I also will probably read My Dearest Darkest because that was her 2nd one, and I believe that's a YA sapphic horror one. I honestly know nothing about it, so I'll probably read that as well. Other books that I could read is Come Closer by Sarah Grant, Darling Rose Gold, The Broken Girls by Simone St. James, The Deep by Nick Cutter, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. And then there were 2 books on there that I had already read, The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson, which loved that book. And then also, what was it called? That Christina Henry book, Near the Bone. And I've already read both of those, and I really enjoyed both of those. But anyway, like I said, I don't know which of those books I'm going to read, except for Into the Drowning Deep, probably in My Dearest Darkest. I'll definitely read these other books as well. Not all of them. But I do want to read a couple just so I can get a taste of like what she likes. And I really hope whoever got mine has a great time. But we'll see, you know? We'll see. I think it's a fun idea for a readathon though. So I am excited for that. And then last but not least, let's get to the couple of books that I'm reading for book troops. And then I'll show you all the books that I'm reading for everything. So for Gabby's book troop, we are actually, that's actually it's called Book Troop. We're reading What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall, and I've never actually read a book by her. But this one says, they were 11 when they sent a killer to prison. They were heroes, but they were liars. So apparently they sent someone to prison, but they lied about it, and so they've been keeping a secret that might be worth killing for, hidden in the forest. Now, one of them wants to tell the whole story. She goes missing, and the other one sets out to find out what really happened in the woods. And I've heard mixed reviews on this, but it is less than 300 pages. It's right around 300 pages, so at least it's short and sweet. But I am excited to get to this. I was supposed to read How to Sell a Haunted House in March for her book club, and I'm probably going to tack that on as well. So, I bought an Audible credit for this in March, so I really should get to this. So I'm probably going to read both of these for Book Troop's book club and then get caught up. One that I don't have that is on its way to me from Book of the Month. I actually skipped Book of the Month last month, but then I had to get this book this month because it won the Pretty Girls book club for Haley Hughes, is The Soulmate by Sally Hepmore. I can't remember her last name. I know nothing about this. I don't know what it's about. I'll just show the cover. I've never read a Sally Hepworth book, but that is the choice that we are reading, and so hence I'm going to read it. Especially because I didn't read last month's Pretty Girls book club selection, which was The House Made by Frida McFadden, because I learned that, lo and behold, she had ripped off another popular thriller book that I hadn't read yet that is like Haley's Golden Crown. And so I decided, well, I'm not going to read The Housemaid until I read that other book. And I'm not going to tell you what book, so I don't spoil things for you. For Kayla's Books and Lala's Literally Dead book club, we are reading The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz, which I'm actually really excited about. This one is about two friends. They have some sort of falling out and they're not friends anymore, but they both receive a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attend an exclusive month-long writing retreat at this feminist horror writer, and they'll win all of this fabulous stuff if they're the winner. And so I think they both end up at this retreat, and then some crazy stuff happens, and I'm not entirely sure all that goes on. But Gabby just read this and said it was fantastic and that it was just so unhinged. And so I'm very excited to get to this. Just like I hope I could also get to her selection for February or for March, which was The Spite House, which is a haunted house book. And I didn't get to that, so I'm 2 books behind on that as well. But I'm really only going to commit to this one. So, you know, it is what it is. And those are all the books that I have, you know, decided I'm going to read. And so I'm going to try to grab them all for you right now. And we're going to say that Rainy's crazy. And I already know I'm not going to get to all of these books. But you know what? It's the journey. It's the journey that counts, right? It's the journey that counts. So, I'm going to try my best. Let me know which books you are reading in April. If you're doing any of these readathons that I said, Realmathon, Stars Hollowathon, the old school readathon, or the Fates and Favorites one, I will link all of the information to all of them underneath this video. Don't you worry about that. And with that, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled trivia game in May. But there were too many readathons for me to ignore in April. All right, I love you all, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.